Welcome to today's live webinar titled Prevention is Better Than Cure, Avoid Blacklists and Improve Reputation. Today's program is sponsored and presented to you by XVerify. At this time, I'd like to turn the call over to presenters, Krista Barrick and Robert Huey. Please go ahead.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Krista Barrick and I joined the industry in 2009. Before I joined the team here at XVerify, my background has been in web design and tech support. I initially worked on the project here before we launched the company by designing the user interface for data verification, and I continue to work alongside with our developers to make sure everything is working as intended. Today, I help hundreds of email marketers and lead generators improve their data quality and educate them on the importance of keeping up with best practices.
Yeah, and my name is Rob Huey. I've been in the industry since 2005. I started off doing lead generation, managing multiple websites. Used to buy up to about 60,000 leads a day through CPA and co-reg methods. So I built XVerify to sit on top of all the leads that I would purchase or that I would buy through those means to protect myself and my mailing reputation. So today I pretty much work exclusively on XVerify. I've had to deal firsthand with blacklistings, removing myself from blacklistings, spam trap hits, and I've seen firsthand how severely, how big of a severe negative impact obtaining bad data can have on mailing.
Yeah, so kind of during our presentation, we're going to share with some of you the lessons learned by many email marketers. So, like Rob said, we do have firsthand experience on how important improving and maintaining your IP reputation is, because we see that a lot of customers come to us after ruining their email marketing reputation, and they really have to start all over again. So that's why we kind of titled this webinar as Prevention is Better Than Cure, because we don't want you to make those same mistakes that others have. Instead, we want to help you be aware of them and resolve small issues before they become big problems. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is Blacklist, and no, we're not talking about the TV show, although that one is a good one to watch. But anyhow, for those of you who are not familiar with what the purpose of a blacklist is, basically it's to help keep the internet free and clear of unsolicited email. Blacklists are generally maintained by third parties, and they contain IP addresses and domain names of known spammers, compromised mail systems, and people who have mailed to known spam traps. So whenever you send out an email, it actually has an IP address assigned to it. And there are many different blacklists that the ISPs look at when deciding how to allow the mail into their user's inbox. So if your mailing system's IP happens to be on one of these blacklists, it's going to create big problems for your mailing campaign. Even if you're not a spammer, it is still possible for you to get listed on a blacklist.
Right, and I'm sure that everybody listening into this webinar, nobody is a spammer here, but you know what? It still happens that you'll end up on a blacklist. So if you're on a blacklist, it might not actually be the end of the world for your mailing campaign. The reason is different providers will put different weights on different blacklists. Okay, so they may weigh blacklist A and blacklist B differently. So ending up on blacklist A may get you blocked at a certain mail provider, while ending up on blacklist B may not get you blocked. But the thing that you have to realize as an emailer or as an email marketer is if you're ending up on a blacklist, even if you're not getting blocked by the mail provider, it should still provide to you a signal that there's a bigger problem with the data that you have coming into your list, and it's something that you need to look into to figure out where the source of the problem is.
So now we're just kind of going to share with you just a little neat infographic here that was originally published by ReturnPath. And as you can see, that this is a breakdown of the listings across all the different countries. And you can see here that majority of the emails sent from Brazil were listed as spam, whereas Japan simply had no blacklistings. And as we can even see here in the U.S., there was 20% of the IP addresses sending mails that became blacklisted, and Canada had right around 19%. So So now we're going to show you here, this is an actual diagram, and I'm going to have Rob kind of shed some more light on it, but it's basically a simple logic that a mail provider might have in their back-end engine to determine why they may choose to either accept a mail into the user's inbox or reject it to the spam folder.
Right, and let's not take this map as an all-encompassing map, because these mail providers have thousands and thousands and thousands of different filters that they may put you through. So this is just kind of a very high-level flow chart of what a mail provider may look at when your mail comes in. So, we're gonna start up in the top left-hand corner of the map. You, the sender, sends a mail to the receiver. Okay, let's call it gmail.com in this instance. So Gmail will take your sending IP, and they're going to run it across many different blacklists. Let's just say, for this example, let's just say that they're only checking Spamhaus. So Spamhaus is a fairly big blacklist. So the receiver, which is Gmail, will ask if your IP is on their blacklist, this being Spamhaus blacklist. So if they say yes, depending on their policy decision, they may end up blocking your mail. And what they'll do is they'll send you a response letting you know that you've been blocked and why. So they'll say, okay, well, we're not letting your mail into our system because you've been labeled on Spamhaus's SBL. Okay, so now let's take another example. Let's say another smaller blacklist like Backscatter. So if you're on the Backscatter list and Gmail goes and asks Backscatter if you're on their list, if Gmail doesn't weigh that heavily on Backscatter's list, you know what? It may make it through their policy decision because it's not something that they want to block you on. However, it will ding your mail as it's going through their filters. So now you're going to continue down through further filtering, meaning that they're going to look at the headers of your mail to make sure that everything matches. They're going to look at the from name, the from address, the subject, and the contents of your mail. So if you've passed all of those filters, off to the inbox you go. You have good quality content. Everything seems to align to you as the sender. However, for some reason, if you get flagged for something, let's say like content, maybe you have some spammy keywords in the content of your mail, they may opt to put you in the junk folder. So, again, this is a very simple logic. This is not meant to be all-encompassing, but it kind of gives you a kind of high-level overview of what a mail system may do before putting your mail into the inbox or the junk folder.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about monitoring your IPs, because with over 300 various blacklists out there, it's important for you to be aware the instant you pop up on one of these lists. So as part of our tool set in XVerify, we actually help our clients keep an eye on monitoring their IPs 24/7. And best of all, it is a free solution that we provide for up to 5 IP addresses.
Right, and even if you're on a blacklist, it does not always mean that your message is going to get rejected. Kind of like I said in the last slide, it depends on the mail provider's policy decision on that blacklist. So it really does depend on the blacklist that you're on, because not all mail providers look at all 300 blacklists. They may only look at a select few. And also, each provider may not look at the same blacklists, hence the reason why you may be getting delivery at one domain, and you may not be getting delivery at another domain. Depending on the weight of the blacklist, you might not even see a drop in deliverability up front if you do not have a large list at that single provider whose blacklist you are on. So if you're sending to AOL and you're on a blacklist, but your AOL list is very small, you may not actually see a big drop in deliverability overall to your whole mailing campaign. So it may not be a big red flag to you up front. But the thing is, if you are ending up on blacklists, any blacklists, it is a sign that there are bigger problems in your media buying campaign that you need to rectify, because what's going to happen is, if you're ending up on one blacklist, eventually with the data that's coming into your system, you're going to end up on another blacklist and then another blacklist until it snowballs into a bigger blacklist where you may have problems at all providers.
Yeah, and we're just going to pop up a little brief poll here. And are you currently monitoring your emailing IPs for blacklistings? I'm going to just give you a minute to go ahead and answer that poll. So as of right now in the poll results, it looks like most people are not currently monitoring for blacklistings, and a lot of them are not even sure if the company is currently monitoring. There's also a good handful that are currently monitoring, and that is a best practice, and I'm glad you're currently ahead of that trend. So the people who are currently not, we're going to shed some more light on that, and hopefully we can help you out with putting the monitoring in place. So now we're going to talk a little bit about your IP reputation and sender score. So as we talked earlier, we mentioned that every time you send out an email, you actually have an IP address assigned to it from the sending server. Now, an IP reputation or sender score is a numerical value ranging from 0 to 100 associated to that IP address. You can think of this like a grading scale. It is a way to grade the quality of the emails you are sending. You can also think of the sender score like a credit score because it's easy to get dinged for little things, but it's very hard to improve it, and it takes a lot of time. It's not something that's going to just happen overnight. So that's why we call this prevention is better than cure. The server that you send an email to actually looks at that reputation, kind of like what we saw in that decision-making map. It looks at the reputation and score to determine if they want to approve the email message to the user's inbox, or if they want to defer it to the user's spam folder, or they can decide to completely block the message entirely. So to give you an example, let's pretend that the server that you're sending your email to is a Yahoo email account, and your sender score is a 90. It's likely that your email will pass and let you get right into the recipient's inbox. However, on the other hand, if you're sending an email to a Yahoo account and your reputation is a 73, they will most likely push all of your email communications into the user's spam folder, where most people do not go to check for mails. Now, this is going to create a significant negative impact on your revenues, and we want you to be aware of these issues before it gets to this level.
Right, and even with a great score, if you're sitting with a 90-plus score, you could still be ending up in the user's junk folder. One thing I want to make clear is that mail providers take a look at the whole picture. They don't typically just silo on to one or two particular points to determine if you're going to get shipped to the spam folder. The score is more of an indication on what you can improve on, and we'll kind of see that further on in the presentation. There's multiple factors that your score is comprised of. So again, you could have a great score, but if, let's say, maybe your content isn't great and you have a number of spammy keywords in your content, you could have the best reputation in the world and you still may get shipped off to the junk folder.
Yeah, so we're going to pop up another quick poll. Do you currently know what your sender score is? We'll give you guys a few minutes or just a couple seconds to answer that. Okay, and it's looking like a majority of the answers are coming in here, and as of right now, it looks like a lot of the audience today has not been monitoring those sender scores. So if you guys are noticing a lot of your emails and they're not getting that success rate that you want, this could be really the problem area that could help you out with improving that. So now we're going to go on and give you an example. We've been talking about the score, but we really want to show what it can do for you. So we're going to kind of show you the score in action. So right here is an example of a good score. So let's take this sender, for example. Now this is a real-life example of a sending IP from the online retailer Bobble Bar, which is a jewelry company based out of New York. Now on a scale of 1 to 100, they're actually sitting pretty with a 99. But what you can see from this sender, as you look at the grid on the map over here, that they've been very stable with their sender score over the course of a month. Now, this indicates that they've been following the best practices. Now, I pulled this example directly from my Gmail inbox, so I can tell you firsthand that they are getting inbox delivery at Gmail. And one of the factors that's contributing to that inbox deliverability is their high sender score.
Right, and I kind of want to also point out that what you can see from this mailer is that they've had a consistent mailing stream throughout the course of this graph, which is about a month. Their volume jumps up a little bit, and that can happen if you start a large media buying campaign in the middle of the month. of course your volume is going to go up. But the thing to point out here is that there aren't big dips in sending with this sender. So you can see that their volume was pretty consistent throughout the first part of the month, and then it jumped up. And again, maybe they did a large media buying campaign, and then towards the end of the month, as the media buying campaign wore off, their mailing stream went back to pretty much normal levels. So you can't really ding this sender for their high volume, because they do send out consistent volume throughout the month, and everybody, if they decide to do a media buying campaign, of course volume is going to go up. It's the whole point of a media buying campaign.
So now we're going to show you an example of a lower score. So personally, while I'm subscribed to several email lists, I occasionally check my spam folder just to see what messages are going in there. And I noticed recently that Ancestry.com started hitting spam. So I decided to do a little bit of investigation, and I found that their reputation is sitting at 87. Now, while the rate of 87 does not seem like a reason to actually reject a mail into the spam folder, it can happen. Again, my personal email is with Gmail, and it appears that they decided not to let this one into my inbox. Now, other email providers might find this score more acceptable, such as Hotmail or AOL. So this could be one of the reasons when you send out a large email campaign to a mixed bag of email addresses like Yahoo, Hotmail, Gmail, AOL, etc., and you notice that only one or two of them, major domains, are getting more opens and clicks than others, this could be one of the reasons. So we're going to dive into some more details and discuss reasons why scores can dip below standard rates and start hitting the junk folder. So when I did a little bit more digging into the Ancestry.com to find out why they were going to the junk folder, we can see here that it's because of a high user complaint rate. Now, from a user's perspective, maybe their inbox is just overflowing, maybe they don't recall opting into Ancestry's mailings, or perhaps they're just sick and tired of seeing too many emails come from the same sender because they're sending too frequently. It's just so easy to hit that spam button and make those messages disappear. It's like hanging up on a telemarketer that calls you. It's a fast way to get them to go away. But as you can see here, there are plenty of factors that go into improving and harming your IP reputation. So I'm going to throw up a quick poll. Have you ever experienced a high complaint rate in your email campaigns? Okay, so it looks like majority of the audience is saying no, but there's still a handful that say that they have experienced it before, and it is something that could come up later on down the road. So really, again, prevention is better than cure. You want to keep that complaint rate low, and the ones that do have a low complaint rate, it's good that you are following those best practices and you are keeping on track with your media buying and keeping the trends of your email campaign going smoothly. So we're going to go ahead and then kind of look at those other reasons, because complaints aren't the only thing that can stop the score and make the score drop. So let's take a look at a couple of those other reasons for a low score. From the last slide and this slide, you can see here that there are multiple factors. There's blacklists, complainers, infrastructure, messages filtered, spam traps, sender rejected, and unknown users. They're key elements to determining your IP sender score. So we're going to dive a little bit more deeply into some of these points in the following slides.
Yeah, and before we move on, I just kind of wanted to point out that some of these problems are pretty simple to fix, while some of them are a little harder. So we'll take, for instance, infrastructure. So your infrastructure can be easily fixed on your end by making sure things like DKIM and SPF are set up correctly in your email headers. If you're using an ESP, most likely this has already been done by them. However, if you're mailing from your own infrastructure and this is not something you have set up, this is something that is a quick fix that can very easily add a few extra points on to your sender score that may actually bump you from being in the yellow to being in the green. So that's something that's pretty easy to fix on your end, and it's a nice quick hit.
So we talked about complainers being one of the major problems that Ancestry.com was facing problems with. We're going to talk a little bit more about complainers. So your complaint rate actually increases each time one of your recipients marks your email as spam or junk. And your complaint rate can severely impact the effectiveness of your email delivery rates. Now, it can even lead to blacklisting, which can result in none of your communications reaching any of your customers. So what exactly can you do to reduce your complaints? Well, the best practice is to make sure you are acquiring users who are genuinely interested in the content that you have to offer. Also, make sure that you set up FBLs with the email providers. Now, this is known as feedback loops to make sure you are immediately removing customers who complain about your emails. Now, our email verification tools at XVerify can also assist with reducing complaints by helping you flag email addresses that have complained multiple times across different campaigns. This way we give you an upfront advantage to identifying problems before they occur. Most companies move the complainers that we flag into a different mailing list, so that way they can choose to email these users less frequently. This way you can find out which users are engaging with your brands and which are not engaging. So, for example, if you send out 2 to 3 emails to users who have been labeled as complainers, and you find that they have never opened any of your messages, it may be a good idea to completely remove them from your mailing list because they appear to be uninterested and will eventually complain about your messages to remove them from their inbox.
Right, and most all mail providers will monitor your complaint rate to see how many mails you are sending to your user versus how many mails are being complained against. And if it reaches unacceptable levels, all your mails will start hitting the junk folder. The problem with complaints is that there's really no surefire way to remove all complainers from your list. You're going to have people that don't want your mail, no matter what you do, no matter what your media buying practices are. There's always going to be some segment in your list that's going to complain. However, you can try and mitigate the risk by monitoring your complaints by traffic source. If you are receiving traffic from a number of different sources, what you can do is you can take a look at the source that's sending you the highest amount of complaints and really dig into that source and find out why it's generating the most amount of complaints, and it's probably time to reevaluate that source of traffic. And I can't tell you how many people I talk to who don't actually monitor their traffic by source, and they may be buying from 10 or 20 different sources, and they have no idea exactly which source is causing the most amount of complaints. If you can remove the source that's generating those complaints, it's an easy, quick win for you to be able to at least reduce your complaint rate, because again, you're never going to completely eliminate it. Maybe the message from your brand from that source isn't getting conveyed correctly to the user, and that's why they're complaining, because they thought they were signing up for one thing and they're getting another thing. Also, if you buy traffic from external sources, such as through affiliate marketers, maybe those marketers are lying to your end users about what they're going to receive by signing up for your mail. So if you can track complaints by source, you can instantly improve your complaint rate by limiting the amount of traffic you get from those sources of high complaint from those sources of high complaint rates.
Yes, that's definitely a lot of useful information. So now we're going to go on and we're just going to talk a little bit about hard bounces and soft bounces and some of the differences. So your hard bounce rate can also be a reason for a low sender score, and hard bounces are generated either because you collected an email address that was a fake, or the recipient has closed the account or completely abandoned it. So if your hard bounce rate exceeds over 2%, it's likely that you could become kicked off of your ESP. So what exactly causes a hard bounce? Again, they're email addresses that are not actually registered with the domain. They're email addresses that were once active, and maybe they're no longer being used or the account has been closed, like an employee that was once with the company, they left the company, and now that email account has been terminated. So what can you do to eliminate hard bounces? Well, we recommend that you check your incoming data up front at point of collection on your landing page by using an email verification tool. We also suggest that you regularly hygiene your older data to find out which accounts are no longer existing. If you have not emailed an email address in a long period of time, that email address could have gone invalid. And actually, after a certain point, old expired email addresses could be converted into spam traps. And those spam trap hits can have a horrific effect on your mailing campaign and sending reputation. So here's some interesting facts we found. We found that most companies who plug in our email verification tools in real time find that on average 18% of the incoming data is bad, and about 10% out of that is due to typos alone. So after data verification is in place, you will know which emails are safe to email to and which ones you want to hold back on. Email verification gives you the added benefit of increasing customer satisfaction and improving the user experience. Because let's say if your user accidentally typos their email address on your landing page, and he's expecting to receive an email from you, but it never comes, you've lost an engaged customer. When you have real-time email verification, it would alert the user before the user submits the information in the form to prompt that user to correct their erroneous input. So this is what we like to call our alert and convert method. Instead of having a lost lead, you've just alerted the user to put in correct data, and now you can convert on that user.
Right, and hard bounces are another one of those easy problems to fix because there are tools in place out there that'll tell you if an email address exists or not similar to ours. So, the mail providers do look at your average bounce rate, and, the question is why? Well, quite simply, the why is because a large bounce rate is an indication of a purchase list, which is not a best practice for customer acquisition, and it's not something that the mail providers like to see from their senders. They like to see that you're opting in your data, or it's coming from a genuine source and not from a purchase list. This can also tell the mail provider that the end users don't actually want the mailings they are providing, or the mailings that you are sending, because they're providing you with fake email addresses. So they look at your content as maybe not quite as genuine, because these users are supplying you with fake data, fake email addresses, and so really maybe they just want to get from your sign-up form to your back-end page to see what you're offering, but they don't actually want to hear from you in the future. So that could be that's another indication of a high bounce rate.
Yeah, and another type of problem is a soft bounce. Now, these usually only happen because of a temporary issue with the server or if the mailbox is full. So when you get a soft bounce with these email addresses, you don't actually have to unsubscribe them right away. In most cases, they are valid email addresses. But if you notice that you're sending a couple times to this user and it keeps getting soft bounce, then it's probably a good indication to just unsubscribe them from your list.
Right, and a lot of times soft bounces end up being a user who has abandoned a mailbox, and their mailbox has gotten full, and they're no longer logging in and actively maintaining that mailbox, because they've abandoned it and it's gone. So you can try to mail to it, 1 or 2 or 3 times, but if it keeps bouncing on the soft bounce, it's time to just unsubscribe them. They're probably never going to see your mail message in the first place.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit more about typos. Like I said, 10% of data quality issues are because of typos. Now, many hard bounces are because of a simple end-user mistake. Fat fingers, dumb thumbs, whatever you want to call it. We find that most typo errors actually occur in the mobile environment. Now, with the percentage of smartphone users constantly increasing, so will the rates of poor data quality. So if you have the opportunity to alert the end user during the mobile sign-up process that the email address they entered was not legit, 75% of the time they will fix the error and continue through your form. If you have no protection in place and poorly formatted email addresses come through, it is going to cause your number of hard bounces to increase, and it's also a higher chance that you could be mailing to a spam trap. So some tools in the market will do auto-correction, but it is best to notify the user of what the auto-correction will change so that the email address, and ask the user to actually confirm the change. This way you get the user's intent, because if you're trying to correct email addresses without the user's consent, there is a chance that you will end up sending an email to someone else who never intended your mail, and that is a big no-no.
Right, and typos and hard bounces kind of go hand in hand, because a typo usually 9 times out of 10 leads to a hard bounce. A typoed email address is another lost opportunity to engage with the customer who actually wants to receive mail from you. So if you can alert the customer before the form gets submitted that their email address doesn't exist or that they've typoed their email address, it actually gives them a chance to correct it, and now you have the opportunity to have your marketing messages reach a user that would have just ended up bouncing. So as Krista said, 10% of our customers see typos, or 10% of the data that comes in is typos. So if you can correct 10% of those users' typing errors, that's an instant 10% increase to your mailing campaign, and I'm pretty sure that everybody would like to see a nice 10% increase in the effectiveness of their mailing campaign.
Yeah, and I'm just going to throw up one more quick poll here. The question is, has your smartphone ever tried to autocorrect your email address when you're trying to fill something out and it completely changed it to something different? Because I've had that problem.
Yeah, I've had it too.
Yeah, people are saying they hate it when that happens. So, there's some that maybe they've got some unique devices out there that don't have Siri to change the information for them.
Sure.
So, it's kind of actually we got a 50-50 almost on this. I mean, some people have had it happen and they hate it, and others, they've been the lucky ones not to have that happen. So, talking about typos here.
Yeah, this is something that I wanted to add in to kind of show you guys the seriousness of what can happen with typos. So, this is actually from a blog of an actual spam trap operator. She loves to call out people, and she's called out some pretty major companies in the past for sending to traps and not having good mailing practices. So, as we discussed, how damaging a typo can be. Earlier this year, this is actually January, 16th of this year, not last year, not the year before, Change.org actually faced some issues with hitting typo traps from this actual spam trap operator, and she called them out. And she said that, you hit almost 4 dozen of my spam traps, and every single one of them is a likely typo. So you can see just how big of a problem it can be for companies. This is just one of the many examples from the past few years that have landed very legitimate companies into very big legitimate problems. And it's something that could have been easily fixed by having some mechanism up front to catch these typos that are coming through. The problem with typos is that they're hard to catch by the human eye. Especially if they're rushing through to fill up your form. The brain tends to make you see something that's not actually there. So like the absence of the extra O in Yahoo, that's a very common one. And then also it might make Gmail, N-A-I-L, look like Gmail, M-A-I-L, because the N and the M look so similar that it's just a no-brainer to you to be able to say, oh, you know what, you probably didn't mean Gmail, you probably meant Gmail, but let me ask you first and let me get your intent to say, oh, no, I did mean Gmail, before correcting that input from that user.
Yeah, correct. And, we've been talking a lot. We've been using that buzzword, spam traps. And so now we're going to talk about a little bit more about what that is. So high-risk email addresses such as spam traps and honeypots, they can severely damage your email reputation. These email addresses were specifically designed for catching illegitimate email to report the sender of that email as a spammer. So what this means is if somehow a trap gets into your email list and you send to it, your reputation will instantly take a dive, and it could lead to blacklisting, as well as based on the volume of emails that you send out and the number of spam traps that you encounter. Now, spam traps are a direct path to becoming blacklisted, and that's something that you want to avoid. So there are actually quite a few different types of spam traps, and I'm just going to cover a little bit of information on that. Now, one of them is a recycled email address. A recycled email address is the one that most legitimate companies get hit by because this email address once belonged to a user. The user has then been inactive in so long that the ISP takes over the account and converts it into a trap to find senders who are not using hygiene and data quality practices. It could just be an older email address you have in your database, which you haven't mailed to in a long time, and you might decide to do a re-engagement campaign. If it has already been converted into a trap, you're going to be in big trouble. So it's not recommended that you mail to legacy email addresses, as it could lead you into these kind of complications.
Right, and then there's also true spam traps. Some people might also know these as honeypot addresses. These are email addresses that have only been created, they've been created by the spam trap operators, and they've been created for the sole purpose of receiving email, which they never actually signed up for. And what they actually do is they create this account. They never sign up for anything, but they post the email address around the web on websites or in blogs or in the source codes of websites. True spam traps or again, honeypots, they're usually acquired by bots or scrapers. And, you as a company may be saying, well, that's not how we acquire data. We don't scrape around the website, around the web to grab new email addresses to add to our list. It's just not something that we practice in. But, however, you have to take a look at also the sources of data that you're getting your traffic from. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know how they've collected, in most cases, how they've collected, their data. And so, it could be a case, and we've seen this before, where these companies buy data from a source, and it just ends up being that that source had scraped data off the web and is just pushing it through their forms now. It happens. It actually happens more times than you'd think, and it can actually cause a devastating effect to your mailing campaign.
Yeah, and then another big problem as well is unknown users. Like we said, when your email starts hard bouncing, it is an alert to tell you it's time to unsubscribe that user from your database. You get hard bounces because the email address does not exist. It's been closed. It's been abandoned by the user. So once it started hard bouncing, again, the ISP may decide to convert the email account, usually between 6 to 12 months after the user has abandoned the account, and they could turn it into a recycled spam trap.
Right, and you'll see a lot of the major mail providers doing exactly that with their expired email addresses. They will turn them into traps over time. I know Hotmail's pretty big with that, so that is definitely something that you have to keep wary of. But one thing I wanted to point out. There's a lot of companies out there nowadays that tell you that they can eliminate all the spam traps from your list, or they can weed out half of the spam traps in your list, or there's other companies that are also saying, oh, we work with the spam trap organizations to work with them to clean your list, and that's just 100% absolutely not true. The whole point of a spam trap is to be elusive. So the thing is, if a spam trap is said to be known out there in the wild, they actually discontinue use of that spam trap, and immediately a new one takes its place. So anybody who's telling you that they can remove them from your list, they're lying. The best way to keep yourself safe from spam traps is to regularly mail your users and immediately remove the hard bounces as they come up. Just get them off of your list. Or, if you don't have the option to send to your data on a regular basis, you want to regularly clean your list to remove the hard bounces over time. So that way, if you do need to mail to them a year later, you've already removed the bounces that may have been converted to spam traps.
Yeah, and another important factor to improve your IP reputation is to think about the volume of emails that you send. You want to make sure that you're staying consistent because size matters. So let's say if if your number of new subscribers is going up at a steady rate, then your sender score is likely to maintain. However, if you send to a list of 20,000 on Monday, then you send to 7,000 on Friday, you wait a week and send to 50,000, this is a red flag that your data collection methods are not good practices.
Yeah, a lot of times to the mail providers, this looks like you're buying data in chunks. And again, that's not something that they like. And as we saw from the previous examples of BabbleBar and Ancestry, we saw that BabbleBar actually had a nice, very consistent stream of mailing. Again, they did have an increase in mailing, but as long as they had a consistent base before that, it looks normal to the mail providers because, again, these mail providers know that you'll have media buying campaigns, that your volume will increase. But if you all of a sudden just start mailing to 1 million users where you've had no mail on that IP before, it's going to look pretty. They're not going to look very well at that. They're going to end up decreasing your score. They're going to put you into the spam folder or just defer your messages completely.
Yeah, so we're just going to kind of cover some of the best practices to help you improve your reputation. Now, as we kept mentioning, purchasing lists and mailing to third-party data, they kind of go hand in hand. You don't know how old that data is, as we explained previously. An email address that goes inactive, it could be turned into a spam trap by the ISP. Again, if you continue to mail to email addresses that are inactive and they hard bounce, it's both increasing your number of hard bounces, which is going to pull down your deliverability, and those hard bounces could later turn into spam traps. So similar to a zombie, they can actually come back to life. Also, avoid mailing to a domain like Yahoo with one O instead of Yahoo, how it should be spelled, with two O's. Again, it could be a typo trap. Also, make sure your end users are interested in signing up by getting them to confirm their registration. So you want to use a double opt-in method. Also, eliminate any role-based accounts from your list, like sales, admin, webmaster, support, etc., because these could be true spam traps. They could just be posted around the web, and somebody else could just use that scraper tool and throw it into your database. Again, we always strongly recommend that you do follow best practices. Get people off of your email list who are not engaging. It is best to mail quality over quantity, which many marketers find this rule hard to follow. So think of it this way. You're going to save a lot of money from your mailing platform by reducing your number of subscribers, and you're going to improve your overall deliverability because you will be sending to more people who are opening, clicking, and have an interest in your content.
So really quick, I just want to talk about feedback loops. I'm sure everybody knows what they are. I'm sure everybody's heard of them. I'm sure everybody's been told to use them, but why? So a feedback loop is a way the ISP can send you back a notification anytime one of your users clicks on the spam button. It's important. Setting up with feedback loops is important so that you can remove the users from your future mailings. So you'll definitely want to register all of your IPs to feedback loop programs. And again, if you're on an ESP, they've probably already done this for you, but if you have your own infrastructure, this is something you need to do on your own. There's no reason really to continue to mail to somebody who doesn't want your mail. Plus, your junk folder rate percentage is just going to keep increasing. So if you do not use FBLs, it's actually seen to the mail providers as a spammy practice because spammers don't really care who's complaining about their mail. They use a method commonly known as spray and pray, which is just send out as many emails as I can and hope that I get some response out of it. Or burn and churn, where they just mail through, burn one IP, move on to the next IP, move on to the next IP. They are not interested in setting up FBLs because they're taking, they're hoping that volume is going to help them in their mailing campaign. So if you continue to mail to users that don't want your mail, your sending reputation with that provider is just going to continue to decline because the percentage of your mails that are going to the junk folder is going to continue to climb.
Now, earlier in our presentation, we talked about blacklists, but what is most important to know is how to become delisted. So Spamhaus is one of the most well-known block lists that emailers tend to find themselves trying to avoid. And when you get listed on a blacklist, the average listing is about 3 to 7 days. However, that can be very critical to your business. So the Spamhaus has a simple block list removal area where you can input your IP address and request to get it delisted. As I mentioned before, there's over 300 blacklists which can cause your email campaigns to get deferred, and it's best to have the tools in place which will check all of them for you automatically and send you a link to where to go to become delisted.
Right, and Krista is right. So Spamhaus does have a very easy method of delivering. It usually only takes a few hours to become delisted. However, and this is true for all blacklist providers, it's not just Spamhaus. That doesn't mean that once you become delisted, everything's okay with your mailing campaign. You're good to just continue on doing what you were doing. It's actually the complete opposite. It means there's a problem within your list and the data that you're acquiring. So Spamhaus gives you the benefit of the doubt the first few times, but if you don't investigate why you got blacklisted and fix the problem, you're going to continue to become blacklisted, and eventually you're not going to be able to delist your IP with them. And typically at that point what happens is that IP will remain listed until your hosting provider removes it from your control, at which point then they can go to Spamhaus and say, this customer no longer has control of this IP, please delist it. And that's not something you want to let happen, because you've worked you've worked over the course of months or maybe even years to build up the reputation of this IP. You don't want to lose it just because, you kept getting listed on Spamhaus, you kept getting delisted, and you didn't actually fix the underlying problem that was there. So, Spamhaus is a pretty good example, but there are other ones out there that have automatic delisting policies where you can't actually go to request delisting, and they actually just drop you off after a certain point of time after not seeing any abuse, like mailing to spam traps. A good example of that is Backscatter, and if you actually end up on Backscatter, your IP is listed for 30 days, 30 complete whole days. So if you're mailing to somebody who uses that Backscatter list, you're not going to be able to get your messages to those users for 30 days. So that's one of those where if you do end up on Backscatter, you really want to figure out why you ended up on Backscatter and how to fix it. Because if you get listed again, it's another 30 days. And it just, the cycle can continue on and on and on and on. But as Krista said, most of the automatic delistings usually last about 3 to 7 days. Again, that's a pretty long time if you're getting blocked because of a blacklist. And if you're mailing, those messages won't make it to those users for 3 to 7 days, which could be, a very important time, especially if you think about the holidays. If you're blacklisted for 3 to 7 days or even 30 days and your messages aren't getting through, that's an extremely long time during those time frames.
Yeah, so really the best thing that you want to do is you want to monitor your incoming data. In order to really improve your sending reputation, you want to monitor the incoming data at the front door, so like on your actual landing page before it comes into your database. And really this is where our expertise comes into play. We can give you an easy-to-read report to identify how many valid emails and invalid emails you have collected. The best thing is that it actually happens in milliseconds, so that way you can kick leads out that are no good. Now, just because an email address is registered does not mean it is safe to send to. Temporary accounts are widely used by fraudsters, and they appear real today, but they self-destruct tomorrow. Disposable email addresses are a growing trend, and our team actually stays on top of any new domains that host these shady accounts. So we house a database of over 7 million high-risk email addresses, which are directly linked to online fraud, chargebacks, online litigators, and overall email addresses that are going to be a ticking time bomb for your list. By being able to flag complainers for you, you will now have a heads up of which ones to either avoid completely or limit on how often you send to them, so that way you can reduce your complaint rate to improve your IP reputation.
Just a quick note on email verification in terms of getting rid of those unknown users. Just want to say what it's meant to do and what it's not meant to do. So email verification is meant to eliminate your hard bounces, especially at the source of your form, to alert the user to be able to update or fix their email address. In our case, with XVerify, it's also meant to reduce your spam complaints as a feature that's built in to XVerify. It's meant to improve your overall user experience. So that way, if a user puts in a bad email address, but they're expecting to get your mail, if they don't get your mail because you aren't validating their email address, it kind of puts a bad taste in their mouth, and they move on to the next thing that they were going to do. And then it's meant to be used in real time or for regular database cleanup. So if you don't have the option to mail to your list every month or every few days or even every quarter, it's meant to go ahead and clean up those email addresses as they start dropping off, becoming inactive, and such. What it's not meant to do is create email abuse. So it's not meant to have you go out, purchase a big list from somebody, clean it up, and then mail to it. That's not something that we condone. It's not practices that we would ever have you engage in. It's just not good email practice. It's not meant to guarantee the removal of spam traps. Again, like I mentioned to you, nobody can do that. Spam traps were meant to be elusive. It's not promised. It's not a promise to get you off of blacklists or keep you off of blacklists. Again, that goes hand in hand with spam traps. It's not. That's the whole point of spam traps is to be able. Of block lists is to be able to, prevent unsolicited mail from going out into the greater email ocean. And then it's not meant to convert typos without consent, and that's something that I like to put heavy emphasis on, because there are a lot of companies that will convert typos for you. If you have them in your database, you need to have users' consent before you convert typos. You don't want to mail to somebody who didn't intend to get your mail. The best thing to do if you have a bunch of typos in your email list that you've never mailed to before, or you want to correct them, is to just get them off of your email list. Just unsubscribe them, because they are typos. They're very common typos. It's best to just unsubscribe them and kind of start fresh. So do not convert typos without user consent.
Yeah, and don't forget, really you need to monitor your reputation and the blacklist. I mean, you need early warning signs in place for in the event your IP starts to take a hit. If your score is not at 100, there is always more room for improvement that can be done. Even if your reputation drops by just 1 point and you're still in the green, it means you need to figure out why it started going down and prevent it from continuing to decline. So you're going to be able to easily preview what is your sender score, see a history of it over time, so that way you can track your progress and improve your reputation. Again, around the clock, we do monitor IP addresses for blacklisting, and we will immediately send you an email notification of which IP has become blacklisted, the blacklist that it's currently on, and more information about how to get delisted. So as we kind of near our closure here, we want to go back, just review a couple important things and our key takeaways. Here are some of the things that we'd like to, for you to take home with you from this webinar today. Number one is, if your sender score drops, you really need to immediately look into why and try to work hard to reverse the damage. You also want to put monitoring in place to check for blacklistings. Now, this is a no-brainer, but it is something, because it's something that's so easy to do, so that way you can stay on top of problems before they cause too much damage. You also want to make sure that you're keeping your email sending volume consistent. You want to keep the content inside of your email campaigns relevant. And if you are not engaging, if users are not engaging with your emails after a few sends, remove them from your list, and also put feedback loops in place to immediately unsubscribe any users who have been reporting you as spam.
And one of the things I wanted to point out too is that Krista had mentioned, remove people who aren't, engaging in your list. We're not saying get rid of them from your list. We're not saying delete them from your list. What we're saying is, if they're not engaging, unsubscribe them. And if they do engage at a later date to an email that you previously sent them, go ahead and resubscribe them. That's 100% fine. They've now shown engagement in your list. But all you're doing is sending emails to somebody who just who's just not engaged or doesn't want your mails. Probably at the end of the day, they're just going to end up marking your mail as spam later on down the future.
Yeah, and we're going to, before we wrap everything up, we're going to be able to answer some of the questions that are coming in as well. And lastly, what we want to do here, let's see, let's take a look at some of the questions. Okay, so someone did ask, how do you find out what your sender score is?
Right, so that's actually done, you can actually go to the Sender Score website, that's actually senderscore.org.
Yep.
And they'll be able to pull that all up for you. You put in your IP address, and they'll actually show you what your sender score is. Mm-hmm. Okay, is monitoring your sender score only available by subscribing to XVerify? So no, it's not. However, again, you can go to senderscore.org. However, we take a look at it on pretty much an hourly basis, and we can alert you if it drops below a certain threshold. It also gives you a history greater than what you're going to be able to get from sender score because we are monitoring it on a daily basis. So. Yes, you can go to SenderScore, but it's just one of the tools that we also provide as well.
Yeah, and I noticed here someone also mentioned that they were a little late coming into the webinar today and asked if we were going to be able to give them a copy of this information. Actually, the webinar is being recorded, so once the recording is done and we have that made available, we will send it out to everybody so you can go back through the webinar and catch up on anything you might have missed. So as we close out here, we wanted to invite everybody who attended the webinar today. We wanted to offer you an opportunity to test out our tools as a token of appreciation for hearing us out today. And we're giving you an opportunity to test up to 10,000 of your own email addresses in your list through our email verification and hygiene tool. We're going to be able to help you do auto correction, help you eliminate hard bounces, flag spam complaints, and do a number of different things that we talked about in the webinar today.
Yeah, and as you can see from the slide here, pricing starts out at a penny or less per verification, depending on your volume. And we don't have any sign-up costs, we don't have any minimums, and we don't have any long-term contracts either. So it's definitely worth taking a look at, getting signed up with, and if you use it, great, you get billed for what you use. If you don't end up using it, or maybe you're going to use it every few months, you aren't paying a minimum every single month to keep the service alive.
Yeah, so just go out to XVerify.com/try, and this way it's a direct correlation to get this promotional offer that we have. And then that way we can set you guys up on a one-on-one. It's just like a 15 or 20-minute demo. We can just give you an overview of the tools and then send your tech team over either our API or JavaScript. We have a couple different implementation options. So that way you guys can get the ball rolling and kind of compare where your data quality currently sits.
Yeah, so I hope you guys have enjoyed our webinar today. Again, if you have any questions later on, you can either come to us directly, at XVerify, or, actually that'd probably be the best way is to come through to XVerify. It looks like we have one more question, too. So what exactly is a complaint? I'm sorry, what does that say?
Where is it filed?
Oh, okay. Where is it filed? And with the recipient. Okay, so a complaint is when you mail to a user, and again, this is going to be at the larger free domains. So you're talking about Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, AOL, Comcast, Outlook, any of your larger ISPs, your internet service providers. They all have a way to let the user complain about your mail, to say, hey, you know what, maybe I didn't sign up for this, or I don't want this, or this is just spam, I don't want it. It's an easy way for them to get it out of their inbox and into their junk folder. And when that happens, what they do, if you're set up with again, it's called an FBL system or feedback loop, what they do is they actually shoot you back that subscriber's information saying that they complained about your mail. It typically, comes to your mail system, and then you have to have a mechanism set up to read that complaint and go ahead and unsubscribe that user. If you're set up with an ESP, they probably already have this set up for you. However, again, if you have your own system, it's something that you would need to set up.
Yeah, so if we have any other last-minute questions, we'd be happy to answer those at this time.
We have no audio questions at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. All right, well, you know what? Again, thank you, everybody, for joining us on this webinar. I hope you guys found it useful. And again, if you have any questions, you can always go to xverify.com and contact us directly from there.
Thank you. If you've enjoyed today's program and like more information from XVerify, please call 1-866-903-9164.